Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Half-Naked Chef. I'm Alexander, your host tonight. Today we are going to make wasabi crusted tuna. It's one of my personal favorite dishes. What you're going to need for this: breadcrumbs, wasabi powder, a small mixing bowl, some raw tuna. You want to get sushi grade tuna, a knife for spreading wasabi, and a sharp knife for cutting. And optionally, you can get salt and pepper, two things I really like to add. Now, what you're going to do to start with, you're going to add some breadcrumbs to your small mixing bowl. You're going to add some wasabi powder. I like to make about 1/3 wasabi powder to 2/3 breadcrumbs. Makes it nice and spicy. We're going to grind in a little bit of black pepper and a little bit of salt. Next, you're going to add a little bit of water, just enough to make everything mix together and spreadable. You're going to let that soak for just a minute. You want it to be a good kind of thick consistency like that. Actually, before I forget, let's go ahead and turn on the stove. You're going to turn it on about halfway, and you want to add a little bit of oil to stop it from sticking. So now while that's warming up, let's go ahead and put our wasabi mix over our tuna. Okay. I like to kind of use my fingers to go ahead and make it nice and even across the whole tuna. Just like that. Okay, and you can actually do one side or both sides. We're going to do both sides in this demonstration. So we're going to then flip it over. And let's go ahead and get wasabi crust on the other side too. Okay, now after you have a nice even coating, like so, let's go ahead and move to the stove. Okay, so now that we've got the stove nice and warmed up, we're going to go ahead and take our tuna. And I've given it about 3 or 4 more minutes on the stove to get the oil nice and hot. Kind of spread that around. We're going to go ahead and place that in our oil. And we can turn up the heat a little bit, 6 or 7. Now, I'm going to cook this one in real time. I usually do not cook in real time, as it does cook quite quickly. Now what you're going to do, you're going to go ahead and cook it in the oil until you start seeing a little bit of white right under here. Now you don't want to cook it too much because it is meant to be served rare. So now, I don't know if you can see it on the video, but we are starting to get a little bit of white right there. So let's go ahead and carefully flip it. Rub it around in the oil again. Okay, about another 30 seconds on this side. Same thing, just till it starts to get a little bit white. So if you look carefully at the top, you can see where it started to get a little bit of white on the meat. Okay, so as you can see, this dish does not take very long to cook. We're talking a maximum minute or 2. Okay, now we're starting to see a little bit of white down there, so let's go ahead and take that off of the heat and turn our stove off, and let's move back to the cutting board. Okay, and our last step is to go ahead, put that on our cutting board. And just in case you're not sure, I forgot to mention it earlier, but you can go ahead and get wasabi powder as well as sushi grade tuna at any Asian type store. I personally like Super H. It's the one here in Fairfax. You can get it at a lot of Harris Teeters and that kind of place too. So now what we're going to do is take our sharp knife and carefully slice it into squares. Just like so. Now, one of my personal favorite ways to serve this is on bread. You can eat it as a sandwich, or they taste very good plain as well. Let's try and get one more out of that. There we go. Okay, folks, there you have it. Wasabi crusted tuna. Thank you very much for tuning in and for joining me, Alexander, on The Half Naked Chef. And you can visit me at www.TheHalfNakedChef.com.